Death Row guys were going to have a concert at the 662 Club. So we went to the 662 Club. I ran the door at the 662. I seen Orlando and them when they pulled up in the Cadillac. And I told my homies, Southside's up here. My homies that was at 662, everybody had their guns. We knew it was going to be something. They said about 5 minutes. Tupac and Suge, they never show up. So we left.
Keefe and crew go back towards the strip.
Top and got some liquor. We was going to party and shit. Got our little drinks.
Meanwhile, Tupac and Suge are driving towards the 662 Club. Behind them, there are some girls screaming, Tupac, Tupac.
So we came up Harlem, and shit, here he coming at BMW. All the chicks was like, Tupac, Tupac, and he was like a celebrity, like he was in a parade. He wouldn't even been out the window, we would have never seen him. My partner busted you. When we pulled up, I was in the front seat. Happened to see my friend, Suge.
Suge looks over, he sees you.
Yeah.
He looks right at you.
Yeah, he looked at me.
You said the shots came from the back. Big Dre, Orlando. Who shot Tupac?
They keep it for the code of the streets. It just came from the back seat, bro.
Because the man, the cold case that no one ever expected to be solved is, of course, a huge step closer to being solved. The arrest in the Tupac Shakur murder 27 years later really shocked everyone last week, and we still have questions about why now,
right.
That the police haven't fully explained yet.
Because the man who is now charged with the murder confessed in 2008 that he was involved.
And has been saying it very openly in interviews that he handed the gun to a guy named Orlando Anderson, his nephew, and Keefe's story is that Orlando pulled the trigger and fired the shots into the car, which Suge Knight was driving. Tupac was the passenger.
Tupac was killed and Suge was
hit but survived. So everyone was wondering what Suge's reaction is to there finally being an arrest in this case. You would think maybe he would be happy that there's going to be justice.
Well, also, and is he going to testify? So I spoke with him a very short time ago, and he is in prison right now. I talked to him when he was on the jailhouse phone and wanted to find out what he felt about the Keefe arrest, and whether he would cooperate in the trial. Tell me what your reaction is to the arrest of Keefe D.
Well, surprise, number one, because I didn't think Keefe D would never get arrested. Nor do I want to see him get arrested. You know, let's get one thing straight. First and foremost, you know, me and Keefe D played on the same Power One football team. And whatever the circumstances, if he had an involvement with anything, if he didn't have any involvement with anything, who want to see? I wouldn't wish somebody going to prison on my worst enemy.
The DA says that Keefe D was in the car with his nephew, and that presumably his nephew, according to the DA, is the one that shot Tupac, and that it was done with the full knowledge of Keefe. Do they have it right?
There was only two people in the car. And Pac not going to tell the story. I ain't going to tell the story, but I tell you this. I never had nothing bad to say about Orlando because, number one, he wasn't the shooter. Number two, he came to my hearing and told to let me go and tell the truth. They still didn't let me go.
If are called to testify in this case?
I wouldn't be.
Why not?
Yeah, I wouldn't be.
Why not?
Well, number one, because I'm not going to get on the stand and testify on somebody for what?
They seem to be saying that Orlando was the shooter and Keefe was in on it, that he had full knowledge of what was going down, and it was revenge for Orlando getting beaten up by Tupac and his team at the MGM after the Tyson fight. Is that correct?
No.
Then who shot Tupac?
It wasn't Anderson, so that's all I got to say about that part.
To summarize, you are saying Orlando was not the shooter, although you won't say who the shooter was. You are not saying whether Keefe was involved in any way in the shooting. And you are saying that if you're called to testify by either side, you will not comply. You will not testify. Do I have that right?
1,000%. I wouldn't go. I wouldn't testify. None of that. At the end of the day, free Keefe D.
You know what's really interesting is that he is pulling back from Keefe D's own statements.
Right.
Which is
But I will say that. So Suge is saying it wasn't Orlando Anderson, which is something that has been widely believed on the streets and alleged in interviews. Keefe D himself has said it, that Orlando is the person who pulled the trigger, and Orlando Anderson died a couple of years after Tupac did,
right,
in a separate shooting.
I think everybody else in that car, there were 4 people in that car, and everybody's dead except Keefe.
Right.
And so now Keefe has said he was involved. Suge is intimating, at the very least, that he's not involved the way the DA thinks he was involved.
So the fact that Suge is saying, he's saying it's not Orlando Anderson.
Right.
I hear that. But he's not going to say who it is, which to me makes me feel like him saying it's not Orlando Anderson doesn't really carry as much weight either, because the reality is Suge is never going to snitch on anybody.
He's never going to snitch, and he's never going to testify. And that was clear.
Him not testifying, I would think that the DA in Las Vegas is not counting on Suge to be a material witness.
I think they're counting more on Keefe's own words.
Right.
I think that's
what they're going to lean into.
One of the things that was mentioned was there was some inconsistencies in our last interview. And the one inconsistency that they said was that in our last interview, you said that you ran into Suge and Pac the day before the incident happened. But people were saying that everyone actually was there. Everyone flew in the day of, so they weren't even there the day before.
Okay. It could have been a fight before, if I'm not mistaken. I'm getting older now. It could have been a fight before this fight, but they was in their Rolls Royces. And Mike Tyson, Rory Horn, and Don King, they pulled up in the Azuras. That shit was looking like some Hot Wheels, man. Them same Rolls Royces, dude. And Suge came out, and I was in the valet waiting. He came and shook my hand. Made me look like a movie star, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if it was that fight, but it was one of...
What is good, YouTube? It's Coffee, tapping back in, man, and this is a wild world we're living in, 2023. Tupac's alleged, as we still have to say alleged, legally speaking, killer or someone who participated in his killing, Keefe D, has been arrested. And there's a lot of wild crackpot theories and conspiracy theories and things like that running wild in the blogosphere right now. Motherfuckers making ish up. Just a lot of fugazi stuff. I'm not referencing anything, that I'm covering right here or anything like that, but I'm just pointing it out with this arrest happening. Motherfuckers is going wild with it. That's always been the case since, R.I.P. the GOAT Tupac was killed all them years ago. Same thing with the Biggie case. There's a lot of theories. There's a lot of conspiracy theories just made up out of thin air. There's a lot of ish where timelines can be drawn together. But nonetheless, let's get into it. Hit the comments as we cover this update. Let me know what y'all think about all this. But Vegas authorities clearing the air, as a lot of people are saying, why now? Since Keefe D technically confessed to this crime back in like '08 when, you know, there was that deal where he got immunity in a whole nother investigation when it came to the PCP case. If you guys watched that Unsolved series, they covered that in there. But just a few years back, all the different documentaries and different content came out where Keefe D spoke candidly about Tupac's death. You know, you had the Death Row Chronicles series. You had the Compton Street Legend, which I believe was the book by Keefe D, the Vlad TV interviews, a lot of stuff out there. And you hear at one part, Vlad, a clip that I shared, was saying to Keefe D, people are trying to put everything together and saying that there's inconsistencies here. And with that being said, I want to know what y'all think about all this, as, again, this is just an arrest. This has to go through the court process. And, you know, most people are theorizing, myself included, that this is going to go to trial. Keefe D's up there in age. The case, many would say, is circumstantial evidence, nothing concrete. The case has been sitting idle all these years. You know, more or less it's just based off Keefe D running his mouth on interviews and such and documentaries, as we just stated. Is that really going to work when it comes to court? Y'all let me know below in the comments. You know, it's tricky. The legal system is crazy, and I don't know. You know, we're going to be following this case for quite some time, is my opinion, you know, as things more or less are just getting started. But Vegas authorities cleared that up for individuals who were wondering why now. They're saying back in 2018, when they started seeing these interviews and hearing the stuff that Keefe D was saying, and then taking old information and evidence and whatever they had, they were like, yo, we're reopening the books. We're going to pursue this. And that's that. But that's the question I want to know, is I think a lot of people are asking, why in the fuck would Keefe D, metaphorically speaking, open Pandora's box? Why in this guy's, what in his thought process would prompt him to do this, being involved in a killing, and just to start speaking about it all these years later? You know, is he just not a smart individual? Did he think that this immunity deal in this other case with the confession, you know, that he was just immune to prosecution regarding this case at all? You know, is that what this man thought? As technically none of those police officers or investigators, agents, whoever was involved in that '08 situation, you know, from my understanding, based on that agreement, they can't be they cannot be involved in this court case or reference anything that he said back then that we saw in the Unsolved series or anything like that. But all this stuff that Keefe D did indeed say can be used against him. So it's really baffling as to why he did this, you know, why he would just start running his mouth. And that, you know, brings up another theory that a lot of people are speaking on, and I want to know what everyone out there thinks about it, is, you know, does Keefe D have a defense basically saying, hey, this was all for entertainment purposes? That was the whole reason that I was doing this. I was writing a book. I'm trying to make some revenue, get in on all this commerce and, you know, business going on, and make some money for myself. You know, could that hold up in court? Could he just say, man, this is interviews, this is make believes, this is ish that I'm just spinning, trying to make some money, you know? Possibly, but I want to know what y'all think about it. But with all that being said, in those clips that we saw and everything shared there, you heard in that, I believe that was the Death Row Chronicles situation, Mob James spoke about seeing Keefe D that night and in the car, and many people are questioning, would he testify before court? Because in a whole unrelated situation, we know Mob James, you know, is right in his name, which he doesn't even, if you catch him in current day stuff, he doesn't even like to go by Mob James anymore. He likes to be called James McDonald, as he's living a different life and on, you know, some positive ish, and trying to do work with the community and raise his family, and is out of the streets, and often is very resentful and speaking about the past and speaking about Death Row and Suge Knight and Tupac and things of that nature. And, as he's lost family members behind all that. But there was a situation unrelated to this where there was reports of Mob James being a federal informant in a drug case back in the day, which resurfaced more recently in the blogosphere. And many people say that that's a fact. Many people say it's not, but that whole narrative comes up once again in this situation, with everyone knowing that the authorities seeing these documentaries had them wanting to get active back on this investigation. They're like, yo, could Mob James be involved talking to the feds? Maybe he talked to the feds before. I don't know. But another side of the coin there is we heard the media speaking with Suge Knight incarcerated, and you heard him. He's talking about free Keefe D. He's even saying things to say that that's not the case. That's not really what happened. Orlando wasn't the shooter. That more or less just totally deading all those narratives that that's true in any way. And then, if you heard him being asked if he were asked to testify at all by any means, he wouldn't, and even says the authorities, they don't want to talk to Suge and stuff like that. But I wonder if they offered Suge the right deal, would he testify? Because more or less you heard him say, we're keeping this on some street-ish. Me and Keefe go way back, playing on the same Pop Warner football team and all that, but I ain't snitching, more or less, as it sounded like what Suge said. But we know Suge is behind bars. He's got some time he's still got to do and all that. And I just wonder, though, if they offered him the right deal, if he would testify. But would his word be worth anything in that testimony, credibility-wise, especially when he said things to the media like this, which, saying what he's saying, they wouldn't want to call upon him. But let's say if they did talk to him and say, yo, Suge, we'll more or less let you walk, or we could knock time off this, which is a stretch, and I don't think would really happen. Would he snitch? Like, don't forget, Suge actually pressed charges on someone from Akon's entourage who knocked him the fuck out and then tried to extort money up out of him, telling him, hey, I won't show up to court if you pay this bread. Like, Suge really did that, and by the streets, that's a form of snitching. But even if they ever did work something out like that, where they gave him what he wanted to try to get him to say something to put Keefe D behind bars, when he's made statements like this, that could be, as we just heard in this clip, saying free Keefe D and more or less calling all this some nonsense, it would totally kill his credibility. Like, it's not going to happen, in my opinion. Suge don't think it's going to happen, and he really has no credibility. But once again, everyone jump in the comments. I want to talk this up with everyone out there. As you know, or you don't know, that's what we do on this platform, is we talk it up, chop it up on different topics, coffee talk it up, everything from music to news to sports to current events and all that. So tap in. Let's talk about it all. Once again, I think we're going to see this whole court case play out in a very, very long process. Will he be convicted? What's your thoughts about everything here? Suge Knight, what he had to say, the documentaries, the case, do you think it's strong or not? And we also, gotta tap into this whole stuff with Diddy. There's a lot of stuff going on about Diddy being involved and putting up a bag. And, that was something that we saw covered in the Unsolved series and stuff like that, when Keefe D was arrested and had that PCP case looking at forever and a day behind bars, man. And, that side of the coin, aside from if anyone believes it or not, if Puffy was involved, the stuff that Keefe D told the authorities about the Von Zip dude and the $1 million payment and the $500,000 down, and the fact that they never got it. And he went out there to go holler at Zip, and Zip had cancer or was sick or whatever the case was, and he wasn't able to get the money. It always just seemed, I don't know, it just seemed kind of iffy to me, like that motherfuckers would just let that kind of debt slide all this time and never collect. And when he went out there, it just never really made sense to me. You feel me? Like, I don't know, it seemed iffy. And that's another side to this that we got to discuss is like, yo, could Keefe D, or I don't know, I don't think he could kind of say, hey, I was just spinning the authorities back then, if that immunity agreement on those PCP charges is still intact. That's what gets crazy to when it comes to a lot of these, not just this case, but other cases where there's deals struck with prosecutors based on testimony. And, you know, they have the whole queen for a day thing where they're allowed to tell the truth about stuff and more or less put it all out there and paint a picture and see what authorities will offer someone if they are to cooperate. Like, what do y'all got to help me? Like, basically, hey, I'm down to snitch, but let me show you what I got. Play my hand, and what are y'all willing to offer me? You know, often in those times, people lie at times, people spin tails, people try to, you know, give authorities what they think they want. And then sometimes in those agreements, it can get tricky where if they don't feel whoever is informing with them, is carrying up and being totally honest and everything like that, they can back out of the deal. It all just gets so complicated and complex, man. But at the end of the day, I'm just tapping in on this update. Want to see what everyone thinks. Hit the comments. Don't forget to sub up. It's Coffee. Signing out, y'all. Peace.